So hello, welcome to the video and welcome to part 2 of my 10,000 subscriber celebration. I had intended to film this video outside on location and I had a great location picked out. So even though the weather has generally been pretty good around the UK for the last week or perhaps two, here in the southeast it's been really windy, and a strong wind is the enemy of a good sound recording, and I'm having enough troubles getting my sound recordings good anyway right now, so I've decided I need to get the video done, so I'll make it here in my office instead. So today's video is going to be a Q&A video in which I'll address some of the questions that you've asked. And I'm going to get straight into the first one that was asked by Steve Marsh. Yes, that Steve Marsh. And he asked me to share 3 things that you guys don't know about me. So I thought quite hard about this and I decided to turn it into a little bit of a game. So I'm going to tell you 2 things that are true about me and 1 thing that is a complete lie, and I'm going to invite you to guess which one is the lie. So fact 1 is that I have had plastic reconstructive surgery of my face. Yes, this is as good as they could make it and you should have seen me before. Fact 2, and I've mentioned in my videos before that I am a Liverpool fan, but I've never revealed why. So fact 2 is that my uncle used to play for Liverpool. Joey Jones played 72 times for the Reds at left back in the mid-70s. He also played 72 times for Wales, of which the family is extremely proud. And me hearing about his exploits playing for Liverpool is what gave me my love for the team. And fact 3, now I've said a few times that I used to live in Australia, but what I've never revealed before is that when I lived in Australia, I actually had a part in Home and Away. This was before the plastic surgery, so they kept me very much at the back of the shot, but I was in Home and Away. So what I'm going to do is create 3 comments against this video, and while my little intro is playing, I'll invite you to scroll down and click the thumbs up of the fact that you think is actually the lie, and it will be fascinating to see whether you are right. So as a reminder, fact 1 is plastic surgery. Fact 2 is you'll never walk alone. And fact 3 is closer each day, Home and Away. I'll reveal the lie at the end of this video, and if that isn't a good reason to stick around, I don't know what is. Hi, I'm Matt. I've lived in 5 countries on 4 continents. I've flown over 1.4 million miles. I've visited over 100 countries, every American state, but I'm nowhere near done. So subscribe to the channel so you can come with me on my next trip. So on to the questions, and Bambino asked me which airline I would love to try. Now I'm focusing at the moment on airlines that are part of the One World or the Star Alliance, and I think in time I'll also try to cover off the Sky Team. My channel is about points, it's about status, so it makes sense to feature the airlines that you have the opportunity to travel on if you collect points and status, and I think I'll focus on that until I've covered all of them. I am interested in travelling on crazy low-cost carriers through South America that no one's ever heard of, but I'm going to stick with airlines that sort of make sense within the broader strategy of the channel, for now at least. I am very keen to travel on Qantas because that will mean I'm going to Australia, which is something I'm very keen to do, and I would really quite like to experience Starlux, which is a new, really quite snazzy airline from Taiwan that launched very recently that has some really quite attractive products that would be fascinating to see. Alex asked if I have any advice on overcoming jet lag. Now, I would never compare myself to a soldier or anyone who has served in the forces, but I have heard that if you do serve, you tend to get very good at being able to go to sleep whenever the opportunity presents itself. And I think through having travelled a lot, I've actually developed that ability. If you put me somewhere dark, somewhere quiet, and if I'm reasonably tired, I can quite reliably go to sleep for 6 or 7 hours. But I'll tell you one thing I do, And I'll tell you one thing I don't do. The thing I do is set my mind, my watch and my thinking to my arrival destination as early as possible. I don't usually change my watch until I'm on the plane because that's route one to missing a flight, but I will start thinking about meal patterns and I'll start thinking about when I want to go to sleep, when I even get to the airport, and certainly when I've got on the plane. Really didn't work for me when I took Singapore Airlines' longest flight from Singapore to New York a few months back because it put me completely out of sync with the onboard service. But I think the earlier you can get into the time zone you're travelling to, the better. And the thing I don't do is spend my entire time when I am somewhere wondering what time it is back home. If you're constantly thinking I shouldn't be having lunch because it's only 7 o'clock in the morning, or I should be going to bed because it's 11 o'clock at night where I've come from, you'll never get your mind thinking you're in a new time zone. Commit to the time zone you're travelling to as soon as possible. Forget about the time zone that you're travelling from as soon as possible. And over time, I think that will allow you to develop this ability to just click into a new time zone very rapidly. Jimmy James asked about my most memorable flight, and I think I've covered that in my 5,000 subscriber Q&A, but I will add that that Singapore to JFK flight was pretty epic. But he also asked what I think about first class products and whether I've tried any of them. I have flown BA a few times and I've got another first class trip coming up with them in a couple of weeks, which I will obviously cover on the channel, but I'm not Trek trendy. That really isn't my thing. They are really expensive flights to take. And as for what I think about first class, well, it's increasingly difficult for airlines to differentiate first class from business class. Business class is getting better and better and better and better and better, the Q suites being the best example of that. There's a big gap building between the quality of a business class experience and that of premium economy, but the gap between business and first class is now really narrow. Indeed, there's really not much to call between Qatar's business class product in their Q suite and BA's first class. You get a bit more space, you get a bit more service, but is it really worth twice or three times the fare? So the improvement of business classes over time is forcing improvements in first classes, and that's putting them very, very close in terms of cost to flying on a private jet. So I think first class will continue to exist for the mega rich who will pay for it anyway. But I think an increasing number of airlines will think that their business class product is good enough and they can charge enough for it to make the economics of the overall aircraft work. And that, I think, is what Qatar is doing, as it has recently announced that there won't be a first class cabin on its newest planes. Bit of a left field one from Oliver. What is my ideal cheese plate? Well, I usually pick the cheese because I don't have a particularly sweet tooth and don't always enjoy the desserts. But I wouldn't describe myself as a cheese connoisseur. I don't really love blue cheese. It's just a little bit too much for me. But I think some good, interesting, varied cheese will do for me. So Paul Harvey asked me how I pick my hotels, and I did make a video where I talked a little bit about this. I'm going to have to remake that video because Hotels.com is ripping the guts out of its loyalty program. They're my preferred booking vehicle, and I'm going to have to find a new one because the attractiveness of using them has almost completely disappeared with this change. But I don't really chase status in the major hotel chains. I think they're overpriced for what you get. Yes, you get some benefits which can be helpful, but I think you can find a much cheaper, locally owned, far more quirky property in every city that you might want to visit, or even if you have to pay a little extra to simulate the benefits that you're getting through status, you end up overall with a much cheaper and a much more enjoyable experience. I've got a trip coming up next week to South America, and I won't be staying in any of the big major hotel chains during that trip for that very reason. Harrison Ford. Surely not that Harrison Ford, but Harrison Ford asked what BA should do to make them more competitive. BA, most privately owned airlines, have this crazy idea of making themselves as profitable as possible. And because of the you-know-what, that means short-term profitability is crucial to recover the losses that they've experienced over the last few years. So BA, to become competitive as we see it as consumers, they need to flick their focus to long-term profitability, which will allow them to make the sort of investment in their product to create that competitiveness that we've seen Qatar doing over the last 10 years. Now, Qatar's ownership is a little bit weird, so they haven't perhaps been as focused on profitability as more commercially operated airlines have been, but it's worked for them. They've become very profitable and they've become very competitive. So I think the key for BA is to shift the focus from short-term profitability, which they've proven they can achieve, to long-term profitability, which will involve investment in their fleet, their people, their IT, well, investment in everything. Maddie asked whether I ever flew on Concorde and whether I will see a return of supersonic aviation. Well, no, I didn't travel on Concorde, and it was really expensive to do so, which is the main reason. I did cross the Atlantic on business a few times, but I was never important enough to merit the extra costs of travelling in half the time. And I think, like most people, I always assumed Concorde would be around forever, so that there would always be an opportunity down the road to travel on it when I did become wealthy. Now, I moved to Australia in 1999, the Air France crash of the Concorde was in 2000, and it was withdrawn from service in 2003. So for me to have travelled on it when I knew the service was ending, I'd have had to get all the way back from Australia to either the UK or the US to be able to do so, which just wasn't a realistic prospect back then. I have been in a Concorde. I visited one at the Aviation Museum in Seattle, and it's really quite small, and if you picture it being some sort of lavish Emirates first class type of affair on board, it really isn't. It was small, it was cramped, and it was a bit dingy. But as for whether supersonic travel will ever return, I'm not sure. It's going to be fiercely expensive to do it, which is going to make it a niche product available only to the elite few. And it is extremely fuel intensive to get the planes up to those sorts of speeds. And increasing the fuel consumption of airlines is the opposite direction to where things are going right now. So I see that as being two significant obstacles to supersonic travel ever becoming a reality again. Now, of course, some billionaire may decide that that's going to become his goal, and that may well mean that it happens, but I wouldn't hold my breath that we ever see commercially available supersonic travel again. IWTBF asked a couple of questions, but the two I'll answer are what's my favourite airline and what's my favourite aircraft. Well, aircraft is pretty easy. I love the A350. The 787 is very similar in terms of how it's made, what it's made of, the lower pressurisation of the cabin that you fly in, which is the single biggest determinant of how awful you feel when you get off the plane. But the 787 has got those windows, and as long as the crew is able to wrest sovereignty of your windows from you, I'm never going to love the plane. It is great to be able to still see through the window shades even when they're darkened on the 787, and it is an environmentally friendly solution to having windows in planes, but as long as the crew can take control of them, I'm just not going to love that plane. I think I'd say I respect the A380 rather than loving it. It's a very quiet aircraft to travel on, but I just have never really been gripped by a adoration of it in the same way as most of us have done with the 747. As for my favourite airline, I've got to go for Qatar or Singapore. Neither of them are perfect, but they're both very good. I really enjoyed travelling short haul on Swissair a couple of years back, and I really enjoyed travelling on Jet too, which I think surprises people at quite how good they are. Hit the Low asked what UK credit cards I use that earn miles. Well, I've currently got 3. I do tend to churn them fairly rapidly to get the sign-up bonuses, but I'm currently sitting on 3. I have the Amex Premium Plus card, which gives you the business class TUFA on BA if you spend the £10,000 over the course of the year. I also have the Virgin credit card, which gives you a similar voucher if you spend £10,000 over the course of the year with them. And I very recently got the higher Barclaycard Avios earning card as well, which will give me yet another upgrade voucher if again I spend £10,000 in the course of a year on that card. 3 cards is probably one too many given how much I spend, but I do want one to back up in scenarios when the Amex doesn't work, and those vouchers really are quite useful. I'm using one to get to South America next week, and it has saved me an absolute packet. I have thought long and hard about taking out the Amex Platinum card, which is close to £600 as an annual fee, but brings an absolute stack of travel benefits. I may actually make a video about it, going through those benefits and valuing each of them, but I just cannot quite swing the economic balance of it in my favour as regards getting one. Mark from Let's Make a Trip asked whether I'm planning to make any more bus or train videos. As we were coming out of lockdown, before you could get on a plane, I made a video of a bus journey where I reviewed it as if it were a flight. It's one of my favourite videos. Mark is very kind to say it's one of his favourites as well, but it just didn't do very well, which was a little disappointing because I thought it was really good. I'll put a link to it up here if you want to take a look. Now, Mark has cornered the market when it comes to awful, uncomfortable overnight bus journeys, and that's a market I'm very happy for him to corner. I'm not going to be competing with him on those experiences. But I have noticed that if you look at Trek Trendy, if you look at Jeb Brooks, if you look at Paul Lucas, all of whom are very well known for being aviation YouTubers, some of the most popular videos of all three of them are actually train experiences. Now they're big headline train experiences like lengthy Amtrak journeys or journeys through Australia, and I've never done anything of that scale, but it is clear that there is a market for that sort of video. It's a big commitment of time and money to take one of those sorts of journeys, but it is on the radar, and I think I would like to experience it, and I would certainly like to share it with you guys and just see how it goes. But as for buses, I'll leave that one to you, Mark. Mark also asked if I would do his tax return for him. Well, I am an accountant, I'm a chartered accountant, but I never specialised in that sort of accounting. So I know enough to be dangerous, but you really wouldn't want me doing your tax return. Hey, I don't even do my own these days. And Toby Ling asked whether I've ever had any trouble getting into countries. And I've mentioned in previous videos that I did visit Syria, which is one of the countries that's on the United States naughty list as regards not allowing you to get an ESTA if you've previously visited that country. It's a very good question. Yes, I have had trouble getting in one specific country, and I've had trouble a couple of times, but it's not the United States. I visited Syria in 2004, which is before 2011, which is the cut-off when you need to declare visits to those naughty countries. I'll also add that Cuba was added to that list as one of the last acts of Donald Trump, but he did it in a way where no one's really sure quite what the situation actually is. So if you've been to Cuba, possibly since 2011, but it may only be from 2021, you're not technically able to apply for an ESTA. You'd have to go to a US embassy to be interviewed for a regular tourist visa. Not a lot of people know that, but it is something to be very aware of if you have visited Cuba or would like to. So the United States has never been a problem for me. Indeed, every country in the world has never been a problem for me, except Canada. Yes, the nicest country in the world, with the nicest people in the world. 3 or 4 times when I've tried to get into the country, I have been questioned quite harshly by the border guy as to my reasons for travelling to Canada. Now maybe a 30, 40, 50-year-old bloke travelling on his own raises all sorts of flags and alarms, but I've consistently had a pretty tough time convincing them that they should allow me into their beautiful country. Can't explain why, but Canada's the only one where I've even ever had a problem. So there you go, some questions to celebrate my 10,000 subscriber landmark. No idea how long this video is going to be, but I suspect it might be a bit of a long one. But I need to answer the question of which of those 3 facts was actually a lie. So the first of them, have I had plastic surgery? Well, yes, I have. Not major reconstructive surgery, I was throwing you off the scent a little bit there, but I had a cyst on my upper lip that was large, it was unsightly, it was growing, so I had plastic surgery to remove it. Any surgery on the face or on the hands, interestingly enough, is described as plastic surgery, local anaesthetic. Very interesting experience, to be honest with you, but it was removed. You can just about see a scar in certain lights, but that was my plastic surgery. Was my uncle Joey Jones who played for Liverpool? Well, no, that was the lie. I'm no relation to Joey Jones, or at least I don't believe I am. Like many people, I lived in a part of the world where there wasn't a professional football team close at hand. This part of Kent is probably Gillingham, and I'm not sure even if people who live in Gillingham follow Gillingham. So I attached myself to the most successful team of that era. That era was the mid-70s. That team was Liverpool, and I've been a fan ever since. So congratulations if you said that one was the lie. And home and away, yes, I was in home and away. My parents came to visit for my dad's 60th birthday, and on his actual birthday we went for a drive up the coast and ended up in Palm Beach, which is where home and away is often filmed. And on the day we were visiting, completely coincidentally, they were filming a major surf carnival event and needed extras to try and fill out the background to make it look as if this event was well attended. So we were roped into going and sitting in the background for about an hour or so while they filmed a number of shots of the main characters participating in this surf carnival. We did video the episode. It is on a VCR cassette, remember them? Younger viewers may need to Google what one of those is. And I've turned this house over trying to find that video, and I couldn't find it. Even if I had found it, I don't think we've got a working VCR to have been able to play it on, but nevertheless I did look for it. So if any of you out there have a complete collection of videos of home and away episodes broadcast March, April time in the year 2000, let me know. But we did take a couple of photographs of the experience, which I will share here to prove that I was indeed in home and away. So there you go, a bit different this week, but I hope you enjoyed it. I would have loved to have gone and done this on location, but I just don't think the sound quality would have been there. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Tell me in the comments if you guessed the correct lie. Please consider subscribing if you're new, although I very much doubt anyone watching this deep will be new. And I'll give a quick plug to my Patreon account. You get access at the higher tiers to a WhatsApp group where people can ask me pretty much anything they like at any point. So if you'd like to join a growing community of like-minded individuals who chat pretty much every hour about some aspect of travel or loyalty or points or status, check out the link in the description below. So thanks again, thanks for the support, thanks for the 10,000, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.